With me is I fucking love reading books, man. We can read Hyper Focus right now. I'm gonna read the first chapter and just give my analysis, or the Subtle Art. This one or this one? I think I'll go with this one. I've read it before a couple years ago, but let's go with the first chapter. The subtle art of not giving a fuck. A counterintuitive approach to living a good life. Mark Mason. Yeah. It's just my little reading session before I go to sleep. Stay hydrated, bros. In this generation defining self-help guide, a superstar blogger shows us that the key to being stronger, happier people is to handle adversity better and stop trying to be positive all the time. For the past few years, Mark Mason, via his wildly popular blog, has been working on correcting our delusional expectations. Let me get closer to the mic. Our delusional expectations for ourselves and for the world. He now brings his heartfelt wisdom to this groundbreaking book. Mason makes the argument that human beings are flawed and limited. As he writes, not everybody can be extraordinary. There are winners and losers in society, and some of it is not fair. Some of it is not fair or our fault. Manson advises us to get to know our limitations and accept them. This, he says, is the real source of empowerment. Once we embrace our fears, faults, and uncertainties, once we stop running from and avoiding and start confronting painful truths, we can begin to find the courage and confidence we desperately seek. In life, we have a limited amount of fucks to give, so you must choose your fucks wisely. Manson brings a much-needed grab you by the shoulders and look you in the eye moment of real talk, filled with entertaining stories and profane, ruthless humor. This manifesto is a refreshing slap in the face for all of us so that we can start to lead more contented, grounded lives. Yeah, I mean, I read this book like a couple years ago in 2019. In my room, I was actually a bit depressed back then. I don't know why. And then I just read this book and it kind of put things into perspective for me a little bit. I remember this Charles Bukowski bit. Let me get into the chapter. Don't try. Charles Bukowski was an alcoholic, a womanizer, a chronic gambler, a lout, a cheapskate, a deadbeat, and on his worst days, a poet. He's probably the last person on earth. Let me take another sip of water. Not really a sip, more like a massive gulp. And on his worst days, a poet. He's probably the last person on earth you would ever look to for life advice or expect to see in any sort of self-help book, which is why he's the perfect place to start. Bukowski wanted to be a writer, but for decades his work was rejected by almost every magazine, newspaper, and journal agent and publisher he submitted to. His work was horrible, they said, crude, disgusting, depraved, and as the stacks of rejection slips piled up, the weight of his failures pushed him deep into an alcohol-fueled depression that would follow him for most of his life. Bukowski had a day job as a letter filer at the post office. He got paid shit money and spent most of it on booze. He gambled away the rest at the racetrack. At night, he would drink alone and sometimes hammer out poetry on his beat-up old typewriter. Often he'd wake up on the floor having passed out the night before. 30 years went by like this, most of it a meaningless blur of alcohol, drugs, gambling, and prostitutes. Then when Bukowski was 50, after a lifetime of failure and self-loathing, an editor at a small independent publishing house took a strange interest in him. The editor couldn't offer Bukowski much money or much promise of sales, but he had a weird affection for the drunk loser, so he decided to take a chance on him. It was the first real shot Bukowski had ever gotten, and he realized probably the only one he would ever get. Bukowski wrote back to his editor, I have one of two choices. Stay in the post office and go crazy, or stay out here and play at writer and starve. I have decided to starve. Upon signing the contract, Bukowski wrote his first novel in 3 weeks. It was called simply Post Office. In the dedication, he wrote dedicated to nobody. Bukowski would make it as a novelist and poet. He would go on and publish 6 novels and hundreds of pop poems, selling over 2 million copies of his books. His popularity defied everyone's expectations, particularly his own. So far, I haven't really learned much about Bukowski. just simply that he's a loser and that he was trying for 30 years to make it as a poet or a writer. I mean, a writer, not a poet, but a writer. He didn't make it, and the weight of his failures weighed down on him, and he used alcohol and prostitutes and gambling to mask his depression, to try and cope with the failures. That's what it says. His popularity defied everyone's expectations, particularly his own. Stories like Bukowski are the bread and butter of our cultural narrative. Bukowski's life embodies the American dream. A man fights for what he wants, never gives up, and eventually achieves his wildest dreams. It's actually similar to my YouTube channel. I'm actually kind of more similar to Bukowski than I would ever know. Because everything that I've tried to do, that I've tried to succeed at, I've failed at so far in my life. And I haven't given up so far. I'm still trying to make this YouTube channel a success. I'm still trying to chase my dreams. Everyone's telling me to stop doing it. Everyone's telling me, everyone's putting, and everyone's I've got like whispers in my ears from multiple people telling me to stop doing this YouTube channel. It's bad for my reputation, blah blah blah, just a bunch of bullshit. And it's actually similar to Bukowski. Like if you read his story, he was portrayed as a so-called loser, right? But then he suddenly made it and became a millionaire. So isn't that similar to me? Maybe I should never give up and I'll become a millionaire eventually. Just keep working hard and you'll be a millionaire. It's practically a movie waiting to happen. We all look at stories like Bukowski's and say, see, he never gave up. He never stopped trying. He always believed in himself. He persisted against all the odds and made something of himself. It is then strange that on Bukowski's tombstone the epitaph reads Don't try. See, despite the book sales and the fame, Bukowski was a loser. He knew it, and his success stemmed not from some determination to be a winner, but from the fact that he knew he was a loser, accepted it, and then wrote honestly about it. He never tried to be anything other than what he was. The genius in Bukowski's work was not in overcoming unbelievable odds or developing himself into a shining literary light. It was the opposite. It was a simple ability to be completely unflinchingly honest with himself, especially the worst parts of himself, and to share his failings without hesitation or doubt. This is the real story of Bukowski's success, his comfort with himself as a failure. Bukowski didn't give a fuck about success. Even after his fame, he still showed up to poetry readings, hammered and verbally abused people in his audience. He still exposed himself in public and tried to sleep with every woman he could find. Fame and success didn't make him a better person, nor was it by becoming a better person that he became famous and successful. Self improvement and success often occur together, but that doesn't necessarily mean they are the same thing. Our culture today is obsessively focused on unrealistic, positive expectations. Be happier, be healthier, be the best, better than the rest, be smarter, faster, richer, sexier. This book is very entertaining, actually. I've kind of fallen out of love with it a little bit. More popular, more productive, more envied, and more admired. Be perfect and amazing and crap out 12-carat gold nuggets before breakfast each morning while kissing your selfie ready spouse and 2.5 kids goodbye. Then fly your helicopter to your wonderfully fulfilling job where you spend your days doing incredibly meaningful work that's likely to save the planet one day. But when you stop and really think about it, conventional life advice, he's basically saying how unrealistic expectations are kind of gonna make you fail before you begin your journey. But when you stop and really think about it, conventional life advice, all the positive and happy self help stuff we hear all the time, is actually fixating on what you lack. It lasers in on what you perceive your personal shortcomings and failures to already be, and then emphasizes them for you. You learn about the best ways to make money because you feel you don't have enough money already. You stand in front of the mirror and repeat affirmations saying that you are beautiful because you feel as though you are not beautiful already. You follow dating and relationship advice because you feel that you are unlovable already. You try goofy visualization exercises about being more successful because you feel as though you aren't successful enough already. Ironically, this fixation on the positive, on what's better, what's superior, only serves to remind us over and over of what we are not, of what we lack, of what we should have been but failed to be. After all, no truly happy person feels the need to stand in front of a mirror and recite that she's happy, she just is. It's interesting. There's a saying in Texas, the smallest dog barks the loudest. A confident man doesn't feel a need to prove that he's confident. A rich woman doesn't feel a need to convince everybody that she's rich. Either you are or you're not. If you are dreaming of something all the time, and you are reinforcing the same unconscious reality over and over that you are not that. Interesting. This book kind of gives you different perspectives on how certain things occur in your mind. I think it's interesting. Everyone in the TV commercial wants you to believe that the key to a good life is a nicer job or a more rugged car or a prettier girlfriend or a hot tub with an inflatable pool for the kids. The world is constantly telling you that the path to a better life is more, 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 buy more, own more, make more, fuck more, be more. You are constantly bombarded with messages to give a fuck about everything all the time. Give a fuck about a new TV, give a fuck about having a better vocation than your coworkers, give a fuck about buying that new lawn ornament. Well, that's society, right? It literally, this fucking book literally says it's society. Give a fuck about having a better vacation than your coworkers. Give a fuck about buying that new lawn ornament. Give a fuck about having the right kind of selfie stick. Why? My guess because giving a fuck about more stuff is good for business. And while there's nothing good wrong with good business, the problem is that giving too many fucks is bad for your mental health. It causes you to become overly attached to the superficial and fake, to dedicate your life to chasing a mirage of happiness and satisfaction. The key to a good life is not giving a fuck about more, it's giving a fuck about less. Giving a fuck only what is important and true and immediate. Interesting. Very interesting book. The feedback loop from hell. There's an insidious quirk to your brain that if you let it can drive you absolutely batty. Tell me if this sounds familiar to you. Okay, let's read it. You get anxious about confronting somebody in your life. That anxiety cripples you and you start wondering why you are so anxious. Now you are becoming anxious about being anxious. Oh no, doubly anxious. Now you're anxious about your anxiety, which is causing more anxiety. Quick, where's the whiskey? Or let's say you have an anger problem. You get pissed off at the stupidest, most inane stuff, and you have no idea why. And the fact that you get pissed off so easily starts to piss you off even more. And then in your petty rage, you realize that being angry all the time makes you a shallow and mean person. You hate this. You hate this so much that you get angry at yourself. Now look at you. You're angry at yourself, getting angry about being angry. Fuck you, well, here, have a fist. Or you are so worried about doing the right thing all the time that you become worried about how much you are worrying. You feel so guilty for every mistake you make that you begin to feel guilty about how guilty you're feeling. Or you get sad and alone so often that it makes you feel even more sad and alone just thinking about it. Welcome to the feedback loop from hell. Chances are you've engaged in it more than a few times. Maybe you're engaged in it right now. God, I do the feedback loop all the time. I'm such a loser for doing it. I should stop. Oh my God, I feel like such a loser for calling myself a loser. I should stop calling myself a loser. Ah, fuck, I'm doing it again. See, I'm a loser. Oh, calm down, amigo. Believe it or not, this is part of the beauty of being human. Very few animals on Earth have the ability to think cogent thoughts to begin with. Cogent thoughts to begin with. But we have humans have but but we humans have the luxury of being able to have thoughts about our thoughts. So I can think about watching Miley Cyrus videos on YouTube and then immediately think about what a sicko I am for wanting to watch Miley Cyrus videos on YouTube. Ah, the miracle of consciousness. I'm not really starting to understand his point here. He's talking about how we have a feedback loop from hell. Now, here's the problem. Our society today, though, through the wonders of consumer culture and hey, look, my life is cooler than your social media, has bred a whole generation of people who believe that having these negative experiences, anxiety, fear, guilt, etc., is totally not okay. I mean, if you look at your Facebook feed, everybody there is having a fucking grand old time. Look, 8 people got married this week, and some 16-year-old on TV got a Ferrari for her birthday. And another kid just made $2 billion inventing an app that automatically delivers you more toilet paper when you're out. The thing about this is he starts to explain a bit more later on in the chapter that you can't see everything that's happening in their life. So comparing yourself to other people is very, very bad. It can be toxic as well. Because you you compare yourself to others on social media. That person on social media could be attempting. They could be attempting like a lot of things. They could be in a very dark place, but hey, they have a new Ferrari. You don't know what's going on in that person's life. You don't know if they're happy or not. All you see is the Ferrari, right? Which is, meanwhile, you're stuck at home flossing your cat and you can't help but think your life sucks even more than you thought. The feedback loop from hell has become a borderline epidemic, making many of us overly stressed, overly neurotic, and overly self loathing. But in Grandpa's day, he would feel like shit and think to himself, gee whiz, I sure do feel like a cow turd today. But hey, I guess that's just life. Back to shoveling hay. And now if you feel like shit for even 5 minutes, you're bombarded with 350 images of people totally happy, having an amazing time. And it's impossible to not feel like there's something wrong with you. It's the last part that gets us into trouble. We feel bad about feeling bad. We feel guilty for feeling guilty. We get angry about feeling angry. We get anxious about feeling anxious. What is wrong with me? That's why not giving a fuck is so key. That's why it's going to save the world. And I'm going to save it by accepting that the world is totally fucked and that's alright. Because it's always been that way and always will be. By not giving a fuck that you feel bad, you short circuit the feedback loop from hell. You say to yourself, I feel like shit, but who gives a fuck? And then, as if sprinkled by magic giving fairy dust, you stop hating yourself for feeling so bad. George Orwell said that to see what's in front of one's nose requires a constant struggle. Well, the solution to our stress and anxiety is right there in front of our noses, and we are too busy watching porn and advertisements for ab machines that don't work, wondering why we are not banging our hot model with a rocking six-pack to notice. We joke online about first world problems, but we really have become victims of our own success. Stress-related health issues, anxiety disorders, and cases of depression have skyrocketed over the past 30 years, despite the fact that everyone has a flat screen TV and can have their groceries delivered. Our crisis is no longer material, it's existential. It's spiritual. We have so much fucking stuff and so many opportunities that we don't even know what to give a fuck about anymore. Because there's an infinite amount of things that we can now see or know. There's also an infinite number of ways we can discover that we don't measure up, that we're not good enough, that things aren't as great as they could be. And this rips us apart inside. Because here's the thing that's wrong with all of the how to be happy shit that's been shared 8 million times on Facebook in the past few years. Here's what nobody realizes about all of this crap. The desire for more positive experience is itself a negative experience, and paradoxically, the acceptance of one's negative experience is itself a positive experience. Fuck, I'm getting mind fucked here a little bit. How long is this chapter? Because I'm trying to wrap it up now. I don't want to I remember also he started trying to create this online business that he was doing, and he actually made it eventually. And he started to realize how relationships, and he starts talking about relationships too in this book, which is interesting. I'm gonna stop here for tonight because I'm gonna go to sleep. But we're gonna bookmark the page. Hopefully you guys are reading along with me. 22. I'm not on 22 now, but I'm on page 8. Page 8. No, page 9. All right, page 9. Put this little card there as a bookmark, and let's go. Page 9. We're gonna come back tomorrow, guys. Peace.